It is 7:03 p.m. I'd like to call this meeting of the Capital Budget Committee for Sherborn, Massachusetts to order. The first item typically we like to do is review the minutes from the last meeting. And to the extent someone wants to move for their approval, we do that. I see that everyone has the meeting minutes in front of them on the committee. The one item I think we should probably note somewhere is that to the extent that there was a piece of information that was taken out of a sort of report as opposed to orally conveyed, we just want to note that. So I know that we are attaching all of the sort of presentations along with our meeting minutes. And so to the extent that it is clear that there's a piece of information that wasn't necessarily discussed at the meeting or wasn't orally presented, but might have just been drawn from one of the slides or presentations that we sort of noted at. The only thing I see that jumps out at me is not being discussed at the meeting is with respect to the roadway management. I believe that there's a number of numbers that are taken from the report or the presentation and not necessarily discussed. The one that jumps out at me is just that the $8 million figure, I think, and some of these percentages of how many roadways require certain types of maintenance, I don't believe was expressly discussed nor gone over expressly at the meeting. So that's the only thing I think that would help in terms of recording the meeting minutes, is just generally noting if there's something that wasn't discussed but just happened to be in one of the documents. Other than that, I didn't see anything else that jumped out at me as that I would propose amending.
I make a motion to approve the minutes based on the amendment you just mentioned. Do you remember?
Aye.
Yeah.
You second that, Corey?
Oh, I'll second. I jumped ahead.
All in favor of approving the meeting minutes as proposed amended?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so it was noted that one of the presenters, there's a little bit of a timeliness concern with them going first today. I don't have any problems with that, or don't think there's other business that the committee needs to deal with before, unless the committee thinks that there's something else to be discussed preliminarily. Okay. With that, then I will turn it over to the sponsor of the renovation for, I'm not sure exactly what the title of this project will be, but I'll let you handle that.
Okay, thank you. So I'm George Fisk, and I'm president of the Sherborn Historical Society. And the last time we met, we were successful at town meeting in being able to garner the funds necessary to hire an architect to work with us in developing a plan for unfinished space in the, I'll call it the 1971 library, the Sherborn Town Library. And we went through a search process. I'll try to be succinct with this, but we did put together a committee to, first of all, we solicited, and Jeremy was very helpful on this, we solicited interest. We had a fair amount more than I thought we would have, but we were able to narrow that field down to 6 fairly quickly. All 6 firms were invited to meet with us to look at the space, ask us questions. We could ask them questions. Of the 6, 4 firms showed up. And we ultimately, proposals were submitted to us. We narrowed it further to 2 firms, and we interviewed again both of those firms. And the firm we chose is represented here by Yugon Kim, our architect online. And so we've been working with Yugon and his team since the agreement was struck with them. There is a contractual agreement that Jeremy's worked out with the firm.
George, just for the record, can you identify generally who the "we" is that you keep on?
I've got my list.
Okay, well, I didn't mean everybody, just,
Well,
this
it's
is,
important, I think, for you to know the people who've been working fairly regularly. From the Historical Society, it's me, it's Margot Powicki, and it's Martha Mahard. And we've been working as a team on this for quite some time, ever since we really went into storage a few years ago. The other person we're keeping posted on all of this is a fellow named Doug Brown. And the reason we do that is Doug is the likely successor to me as president of the board. And we think it's important for him to know what's going on and to ask questions and provide input. From the library, we've been working closely with Brian Connolly, who's the chair of the board, Chris Kenny, who of course has been, knows that building as well as I think anybody, except for perhaps this guy over here, and Liz Anderson. We also been working with Jeremy, Sean, and Jeff has taken an interest in this. He was chair of the board, the select board, when the decision was made to move us out and into storage. And that's when the discussion really ensued as to the likelihood of us moving ultimately into the library. And then, of course, Yukon Kim. And those are the people we've been working with. I would just add, because I think you might be interested to know, that we have, particularly Martha, Margot, and I have been discussing and trying to reach out for prospective funders, those organizations that might be helpful to us. I think we have a long way to go on that, but we would like to try to do what we can. And we met with Jeremy. I joined something called Grant Watch to try to find grants that might be out there that could be available to us. One of the complicating factors, of course, is that any build out would be done by the town. So who's applying for the funds? And I've been thinking a little bit more about this because I think the town perhaps does need to apply, but I think there might be opportunity for the Historical Society to apply as well. I need to do a little more research on how we might be able to raise funds to pay for something that actually is a municipal project. So that's all I've got to say, except Yukon is here to really sort of run you through what we've done, where we are today. And I'm pleased that he's been with us. He's been a delight to work with. He's a creative, energetic guy. And Yukon, I'll let you take it from there.
Sure, thank you. Thanks for being so thoughtful to let me present earlier on this meeting. So just a little bit, we are an architecture and exhibition design firm. And that I imagine was one of the factors why we were selected, because we are able to create spaces that can accommodate and think about objects, but also think about the architecture. And so, as George said, we've been working with our kind of MEP consultant, which is a firm called CES. And we've been looking at the existing conditions, which is always an important factor when working in an existing space. And we've worked with a committee to kind of develop a number of options, one of which they selected in terms of how to lay out the space. And then so where we are right now is that late last week, we submitted to our estimator a kind of pricing package for them to kind of price out with add alternates and deduct alternates, so that then in early January, we can give a kind of lay of the land in terms of possible steps to move forward with the projects with different finishes, different kind of components in kind of early to mid-January. And so we have completed this kind of SD estimating package, which we will, I can kind of show on the screen if people are interested, and kind of walk through there. The general plan, as I understand it, is that we will really, based upon this estimating package, work with the committee to kind of decide what is in scope and what will not be in scope, and what will perhaps be value engineered, to then move forward because the goal is to have 100% construction documents biddable by the middle of next year, so that then we can keep on moving forward to limit escalation and realize this project in some form that we will work together to realize. I can share the screen, or if anyone.
Just if I may ask a quick question, sir. First of all, thank you for participating in tonight's meeting. We appreciate whatever insight you can share with us. I was curious in terms of some of the design parameters, and you talked about different packages and working with the committee as to what, you know, the sort of goals of the project would be. Was there any like initial discussion of the cost, like what the goal of the cost would be? And I'm just kind of curious what at least you were told the goal would be in that respect.
Yeah, there was a estimate that was provided earlier, but we discussed with Jeremy that there should be a goal to reduce that number further. And so the way that we have structured the estimating package was to create the number of kind of base bid and deduct and add alternatives, so that then when in January, when we present the material to the committee, there'll be a full menu of different pricing options or components, that could be decided to be in scope or out of scope. And then we also have put in different types of finishes that will have you know, a variety of lifespans, and that will also have cost implications.
And just so if I apologize to make sure I understand the timeline. When did your firm first get brought into the project? I'm just trying to figure out how long you've been working on this already.
I believe, Jeremy, it was so fuzzy. Maybe it was like October, was it? Or
Yeah, we did the selection process. It started in late August through September. So yeah, I think you were working in earnest by October.
so yes, in October we've been starting, and then the first few weeks of that we're working with the committee to really study and analyze the feasibility study that was done before. And then what we did was propose different layouts based upon speaking more closely with members of the committee to understand how they want to use the space. And then simultaneously, we did a kind of existing conditions study with our consulting engineers coming to look at the systems. As you know, this is a museum space, so many of the objects require some special climates. And so that was part of the evaluation. Plus also because it's a basement level, there's a lot of exposed infrastructure and head height issues. So that was part of the analysis as well, to kind of look at those spaces and how to change the space to be more front of house and more in line with the museum aesthetic that I know I discussed with members of the community.
So if I understand correctly, it seems like there's a lot of work that's in progress. So perhaps it might not be the most efficient use of everyone's time to sort of see exactly where you are now, because things are going to change potentially fairly rapidly over the next few weeks. And you're talking about trying to get stuff in mid and early January. So I don't want to burden you with trying to do a big presentation to us at this time, because it sounds like at least when there's greater clarity with what you're looking for at least fiscal year 2026, it'd be another time to be talking about that. Is that what you were thinking, George, or?
I think he was going to make, Yugon was making a presentation tonight, but Yugon, do you think it's a better use of time to postpone further presentation on this until a later date? Sort of take your lead on that.
Sure. I mean, I think it is correct that until we get the estimating package and we kind of reconcile the numbers with the design, that may be the best time, right? To once the committee meets and evaluates the budget and then decide what's in the scope, we can present that full scope to this board to kind of demonstrate this kind of next step into the DD phase. So, I guess, right now, we're just trying to give you a snapshot that, we've been working for the last, 2 to 3 months to kind of push this project forward. And we're at the estimating phase right now. And, we expect to have those numbers back in early January, and then we'll meet with the committee to discuss next steps.
Lauren, I wasn't sure if you were about to
No,
say
no, no.
something. Okay. That's fine.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm,
there's been a lot of work
I'm just
done.
like, be anxious to see it, but I get it. I think it makes more sense what you're saying.
I mean, would it be worth it, at least just a summary of the schematic?
So, I mean, I can share the screen
With
just
us.
quickly. So,
Because I think the community should appreciate, there's been a lot of work done
Yeah.
by way of existing conditions assessment and sort of vetting some preliminary layouts. So, there's been a lot done in the last couple.
sure. So can you see the screen that says
Yeah.
drawing list and narratives? So
Yes.
part of this is that we do an outline specification so the estimator is specifically pricing out products. It's not abstract, so that we really can analyze into the committee. We think this product is good, and the pros and cons. So, this is just scrolling through the basic outline specification that talks about, different materials, different hardware. And then it's broken up in divisions. And then, as likely many of you've seen, as any architectural project progresses, this outline specification expands and becomes more detailed. But we try to put considerable time specifying, being clear about what we think should be in the project, so that then we can, so that this first estimate is more on target. And so you can see these are the different kind of finishes, and then we go through the kind of products that, because this is a museum space, we would like to be included into the project. And then we have a series of different add-alts as part of the project with different finishes, like a wood ceiling versus a acoustic drop ceiling. We have different ways of distributing the air through the space, different light fixture layouts. We have different ideas of dealing with the exposed structure, the exposed piping and HVAC systems by painting the ceilings. And so we're trying to create a pricing package so that then we can just have a holistic conversation with the committee about things that should be in or out of the project.
It's sort of the menu of choices in the costs. Yeah.
And then this is the narrative that our consulting engineer has done of the space. They brought out a team of people to assess the systems and kind of look at how to then add on to the existing systems to make certain spaces meet more museum level climate systems. And so it's a kind of, pretty detailed document that then walks through that. So it acts as a baseline as we decide to move forward. And so this is basically the narrative that looks at the plumbing, the fire protection, the electrical, and the HVAC of the space. Then, we do have this kind of estimating package where it looks at the existing conditions. It talks about the demo scope. We work closely with the committee to look at the entire sequence, worked with the library director to understand what would be the best kind of approach that would work well for the museum, but also benefit the library as well. And so we kind of identify a clear demo scope, both for the floor plan and the RCP, because as you can see in the existing space, there's already infrastructure there that we don't think would be conducive for a museum space. And so there's that scope as well. Then we are looking at the proposed plan. And so you can see a little bit, we can zoom in, this is basically now the new circulation path where, for those who I'm sure are very familiar, the kind of pathway, looking at perhaps modifying some of the existing doors because we're basically changing a back of house to a front of house. And then we have this sequence of vistas of seeing into the space and then really creating this kind of art display zone, curator's office, archive space, and then the staff area. And then working a little bit with the library to ensure that its storage here will be laid out in an efficient way. That includes then a RCP. We look at lighting layouts. We know that because of our work with exhibitions and art spaces, we already are thinking about the lighting of this art space, and that's part of the pricing package. And then we have one approach to the RCP in terms of finishes and lighting scope. We have an add alternate layout here rather than ACT, kind of a wood slat ceiling that is more in line with some of the finishes upstairs in the library. And then we have different kind of layouts for the fixtures themselves. And then we have a series of just elevations, which I'm sure, depending on how big your screen is, big or small. And then in these elevations, we talk a little bit about some of the display components that will be in the space. And what we've decided for this project, because we know that budget is, of very primary concern, but simultaneously we want to make a space that's special. Our approach here is really to use off-the-shelf components and then put them together in a way that is more unique. And so we have ideas where we're having display areas using, components that are readily available, but then will be presented in I think, a museum quality way. And we've started to talk with Martha in terms of ideas of curation. So then designing the architecture and the curatorial strategy simultaneously. And so, basically that's where we are in terms of the documentation. And then in January, we'll get the estimating package, and then we'll kind of talk holistically with the committee. What we're doing right now, while we're waiting for the estimating package, is getting objects from Martha that we know will be in the space, so that we can now test fit some of the larger objects within the space and really start thinking about this museum space from the object out. Because as you've seen, is that we basically have designed the shell, and there will be a conversation between object and architecture as we move through the final phases of the project. And then I guess here is the last thing: is part of the MEP scope is to, at this stage, to mark up our drawings. And so they basically are putting notes on top of our drawings so that the estimator can more accurately understand the scope of the kind of mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. And so you can see here, we coordinated with them because there are certain areas that are low in terms of pipe infrastructure and HVAC. And so, we've identified certain areas that may have to be slightly modified. And so we really are trying to be comprehensive so that this SD package real decisions could be made, so there's less unknowns as we move to subsequent phases. Is my short-ish presentation of the documents that we have.
Thank you, John. That was great.
Thank you.
I'm required to attach any documents that we discuss in the meeting to my
Sure.
minutes. And I wondered if you could send me your presentation.
Of course, I can send those, for sure.
Okay.
I'll send them, should I send them through Jeremy, or is that the best way?
Yeah, that's
Sure,
fine. You're
through
done.
Jeremy.
Yeah, I can forward them on to Corey.
Okay,
Will do.
thank you.
Are there any questions of Yvonne before we could probably let him go as we talk a little bit more other stuff, but any questions of Yvonne at this time? Anybody in the audience that is wanting to ask a question of Yvonne versus discuss the project in general?
Can I ask actually one question, Mary?
Go ahead.
How you got, when you say add alt, so do you mean things that could be added on after the, like, post facto, post construction, or?
Or is part of it.
No, well, what we try to do, and this will also be kind of a bidding strategy eventually, because is that we try to structure the pricing package where there's a base scope and the minimum scope, and then the add alts are kind of nice, maybe if you can, kind of items. So there are additions that could be added as part of the project. And so right now in estimation, that's how we're doing that, so that the committee can understand what is the value of, say, linear LED fixtures underneath shelves. And so they're not must-haves, but they would certainly assist in terms of the presentation of the collection. So it's just a way of itemizing cost so that the committee can make a fully educated decision on what should be in scope and not in scope.
Would you also be the project manager on this too? Is that what also your firm does, is you manage the whole
Yeah,
process?
I'm a partner, and will follow the project through. I think the way that right now our contract goes to the end of CDs, as I remember, Jeremy, and then we will negotiate CA services if the
Okay,
town
thank
desires.
Okay, thank you.
Not seeing. Yeah, I'm just looking around to make sure there are no other questions. So giving a satisfactory pause. Thank you very much, Yvonne. We
you.
really do appreciate your coming and joining us today and sharing some of the work that your firm has been doing on this.
Yeah, I look forward to showing more kind of renderings and development of the project as we move early next year. So it was nice to meet you all, and I look forward to meeting you all again soon.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night. As he drops off, one of the things that George, you had mentioned about trying to get grants, and I think a lot of it kind of depends on how things are written, but just one factual piece. I remember this coming up last year, and I just wanted to confirm, is the collection itself town property?
Collection is owned by the Historical Society.
So it's owned by the historical, so it's not town property?
If there's any that's owned by the town, I can't think of it.
Because there was somebody last year who I think suggested that the collection was town property. And
Wasn't me.
And I'm just trying to make sure I have that accurately. Like, so if someone to say, who owns this desk or these papers, that's not the property of the town. So the town's by no means responsible for any of that sort of historical archival.
Responsible meaning.
Do we insure?
Yeah, that was
No.
my question.
The town has not insured our contents.
It would be impossible. to
Yeah, how do you,
Yeah,
how
I
do you
mean,
insure it?
some of the things are hard to put a price on, right? They're one of a kind.
Yeah, no,
There are,
As
there
far
are
as
some,
ownership though, I mean, they are objects that show the town's history. So in some ways, they're all of the town, the town's cultural.
No, I understand, but like the historical society could auction them all off if it wants to.
It's town.
That did, I remember that.
Okay.
There was because there's sometimes an agreement, right? There was a discussion about that, and I'm remembering what you're.
So ownership, so the town can't auction the collection off, but the historical society
You can't,
could auction all of this off.
and we're looking forward to that. Trust me.
Touche. So I know, but I just want to make sure I understand in terms of if it was town property, I think it makes it easier. And I see Jeff's hand is raised. Maybe Jeff has an answer.
Well, you may already know this, but the town is obligated to house the museum. When the original Dowse Library was built in whatever 1916 or whenever it was, completed, the conditional approval of the Dowse funding for that library, which is now a Murchison property, was that the town would in perpetuity house this collection. That doesn't mean they own the collection, but they have a legal obligation to provide town space for it. And it's currently in about its third or fourth location in town. It was originally in that original Dowse Library, and they can correct me if I'm wrong, but it was on the second floor of Town Hall, then the basement of Town Hall. And so there is an obligation on the part of the town, is the only thing I'm saying. That doesn't have anything to do with ownership, but we do have a commitment. Thank you.
Martha, you also have your hand raised. I'd like to recognize you to ask your question or say something.
You're muted, Martha.
We don't hear you, Martha.
Martha, you're muted.
Right.
You should be able to unmute. There you go.
There she is.
Well, she's still muted.
It's hard to mute.
So you don't want to talk or?
We can see you, but you're still muted.
It's difficult sometimes on your phone to unmute yourself. It's hard to find it.
Oh, yeah, no, I had that problem.
I get this.
She's actually monitoring the library trustees meeting at the same time.
Got it.
I think she does want to talk though, but
Yeah.
Jeremy, can you unmute her?
All I can do is ask her to unmute.
No, actually, she just said don't. Okay, so we're not gonna.
Maybe she's saying she doesn't have anything to say.
Okay.
Can anyone lip read?
Let the minutes reflect that we don't know what Martha was saying.
I'll say Martha
Isn't
said
there,
something.
some
charades option?
there's a book
I
called
bet it's wicked
Trustees,
colorful.
right?
I wish
Yes,
I
and
could.
it was written by a Sherbornite.
Could be a fly on the wall in that room.
Martha, the chat function is on, so if you wanted to type something, I could read it.
She's
Okay,
giving a thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
all right. Okay, so if I have that right, ownership is the society, not the town. So what I was suggesting, George, about the whole grant, obviously a lot of it comes down to how things are written.
She types
For
it.
someone who's totally uneducated in this, it could be possible that like a display case or something that is movable could fit under some grants, but, constructing a town building, perhaps not, but.
Yeah, Martha did add some context to the ownership of the collection. She writes, the Attorney General is involved, the ownership of the collection, and with the ownership of the collection, the Historical Society can't just auction it off. There is some legal limitations.
We really have to go through hoops to auction it off.
What are you looking forward to?
That's what
It's the accession
I
process.
think Margot is looking for a home to put that in.
I'm sorry, Martha, I know that maybe you could chat, or maybe you're just taking off, but the Attorney General, there's some limitations on a private organization from auctioning off its because of its nonprofit
I don't know
status?
the details, but
Okay.
it sounds like somehow with historic societies, the attorney general involved with that ownership and the ability to auction off.
Okay.
I
We
don't know.
have to have actually owned the property or had the property in our possession for at least 7 years before we can consider doing something. And we've had it for 7
I
years.
was gonna say, I
Yes.
thought that would
That's
be
not
an
a
issue.
problem. We are responsible to get in touch with heirs. I mean, it's a very arduous process to get rid of stuff.
I just asked
The previous
ChatGPT.
ownership,
Yeah,
lineage of ownership, yeah.
HE.
Oh, heirs, sorry. Got it, sorry. I thought you were using an acronym. I apologize.
Martha writes, yes, because there is a fiduciary issue. Remember all of the museum that tried to accession their paintings by Norman Rockwell? Example that was up in the news.
Okay, all right, so limited ability to sell, but still ownership, it sounds like it. Okay. I think in terms of the process in general, I'm just gonna provide feedback I think that you've probably already heard before, so I will be very brief. Talking with people in the community, I have heard that a big expense might be challenging in general, especially as I look at the funds for the town this year. There's going to be a lot of large capital, or there have been at least brought to us a large number, many large dollars, capital projects. I think the way that some of this is being done, where you have multiple different options in terms of there's the, ideal option, there's a less than ideal option, et cetera, and different ways that you can make it modular. And I'm looking around at all members of the committee. I think you're on the committee. Is that right, Sean? Or you're not on the committee?
De facto, yes.
So the notion of the different ranges, and I think that is going to be helpful because at some point there could be the town, whenever this gets proposed and gets on a warrant, it goes to the town and they say, we think it should be housed somewhere, but it shouldn't be a museum quality, or, how do we make the space feasible to store things, and even maybe a climate control room to store, but not a museum. And so I think having those sort of modular options might be helpful, because the town might say yes to some things that have a lower cost than a higher cost. Again, stuff that you've all heard before, and I know that you're very cognizant of it, so I don't want to belabor the point, but obviously town finances being what they are, that's an obstacle.
Can I just add one point to that, if you don't mind? Which is that we need to get the legal agreement for you. It sounds like the Dow's donation implied, because it is required to be a museum or to be things that are on display. It's not just a warehouse. It's intended. We just need to get the facts about what the town is obligated to supply to the museum, to the historical. It's not just a closet somewhere where you can keep things safely.
Right, so to the extent that there is a binding arrangement, that would be, I think, great for the town to know about and see. The documentation that I have seen to date does not suggest that. But I'm sure there may be more out there. There's also, without belaboring it, there is some Massachusetts constitutional provisions that create some sort of obstacles in that front as well. But we don't have to get into the legal discussion. I think it would be great to have to have a space in the library in which the Historical Society can use, and that, the town's history is preserved. I'm just talking about, as you all know, the financial ramifications of some things don't get voted or approved at the town meeting, as last year there was a big dollar item that got voted down. So as you guys know, it's a reality.
Can I ask, it's being carried on the preliminary capital of 800,000. And there was a comment made earlier that the original number that was kind of floated, that you had made the comment to the architect that perhaps it should be tightened a little bit. What is the number that we're carrying as a potential?
Well, currently the capital has the 800,000.
The 800?
That's until we get the information back.
Okay,
That's as good a number than to carry. And certainly, the message, has been relayed to UConn and the team is very cognizant of that to keep an eye on cost. You heard from UConn, you got that message.
What was the contractual value? Because I know that there's a certain amount that was allocated for sort of design work and getting up the contracting documents. And I don't know, and there was a lot of discussion, well, like hopefully there'll be still some money left over and that could be kind of rolled into the actual construction project. How much are the sort of these services that you got?
Value. I mean, the appropriation was $100,000. It was less than that. On the order of 80 or so.
So is it like a cap or is it?
It's a not to exceed.
Okay.
I don't recall exactly, I'm sorry.
Okay, no, that's fine. I'm just curious. I didn't know how much it might be able to roll in.
There may be some, but not overly significant.
One thing we did do was focus on this part of the process, having the alternates.
Mhm.
And I use that term loosely, he phrased it as adults, just real briefly. Adult is a term in the bidding process. That's a strategy, both with items you may want, and, you have to stage them in certain ways for the type of bidding. At this stage, we're talking about options, maybe. They're two separate things. They relate in that there might be differences in finish and stuff, but there's decisions to be made within the next month or two that kind of set the course, and then there's decisions that can be made basically after the bid. You get the bid back. Almost all of our buildings, we've had that. It could be a new boiler, it could be a roof add-on we did on the library.
And, to Sean's point, we did actually add another costing step within the contract for design, which did increase the cost, but it was valuable to have that information up front. Just to help inform.
Mostly for the communities,
Right.
really, for this part of the process.
Do you have questions of us at all, or I don't
No,
want
I'm
to take
sure
up
you're
your
mindful
time
of-
nor UConn's time,
I'm
so.
sure you're mindful of the fact that it's costing a lot of money to keep us in storage.
Mhm.
The town is paying a lot of money and has been for 4 years.
No, just having the items in storage is not a solution.
It is not optimum for this items. And we're presently using space at 20 North Main Street, which has been donated, which could change at some point. So it's kind of a moving target.
Yeah, and I just saw a roll-up of the town building budget where the rent is being charged from. I think it's on the order of $12,000 per year for the rental for the space at General Giant.
yeah, we had been told before that it was 1,000 a month, so it'd be 12,000 a year.
Is there any way, that's what when I asked a question about add alts, like it's almost like must have, would like to have type of thing, but is there any way to get the basic package, in stages? I've asked that before. And I know you don't like it, Sean, but just like the base, like the HVAC, and just have it be a multi-year approach, like kind of pay as you go
Well,
approach. And I know there are challenges with that, but I'm just saying if it's like 200,000, then
yeah, well, you can't split it up that much. I mean, there's a certain amount of a project you have to do, right? Because you're demoing areas, you're dismantling HVAC, you're moving sprinkler heads. And then you have egress issues, right? You're changing exit paths and et cetera. So you have to build the whole project. So it's not like you can do 50%. You know, there's certain adults that may not ever be staged. It might be there's different furniture finishes that may never happen. But
And I think,
the bare bones have to be done.
but I mean, the display, the final display, units and things that might float around are certainly things that, we know that they've been talking about doing, at a future date, using other funds. So, there's components beyond the shell of the room that could be fixed, maybe funded by other grants as well.
Or individuals who want to have their name on a display cabinet. Same.
Okay, well, it sounds like, looking at our scheduling, there'll be a meeting on January 21st, in which we're gonna be talking with the schools, for capital budget committee, which is again, a Tuesday night. I don't know if that is early enough in the timeline for UConn, but
We can certainly let them know.
like, I don't know if he has a date that he's working towards, but the 21st is essentially our next meeting. So if that worked in terms of where the town is with the process and working with UConn and the committee and everybody,
We
so.
may, that the week prior, I think it's the week prior, the select board have a meeting. We may have you can also give an update to the select board. So I think that it's time.
Okay, yeah, I mean, it's important that these things don't get artificially rushed, right? I mean, but, I mean, that would be our next meeting, if that makes sense.
If not, there's certainly meetings in February, but you don't have a schedule. Yeah, I mean, expect to be done.
We all hope that there's not meetings in February, but inevitably.
We've been asked to be finished before advisory begins their consideration of those items, the capital items. That's why we're doing it earlier this year.
There's a possibility that the 21st would be a joint meeting with advisory as well. So it could be an opportunity.
February, or January.
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 My guy should be efficient to do it that way.
So if or the project is at that appropriate point, then maybe the 21st is a time it could be joint, could be the schools and perhaps this project as
We might have some idea with regards to grants by that time also.
well. Oh, wow, that would be. George is like, no promises.
Promises,
Not by lack of effort.
not by lack of effort.
No, it's not easy.
And the bottom line is over 500 people have attended our programs this year, which is
That's great.
impressive.
Yeah, you've been very active doing a face forward.
We have been extremely active and people are working every single day to try to move this forward. And we're aging in place, just like our artifacts.
Gracefully, gracefully.
Thanks, come in.
No, thank you so much,
Good.
both of you and Martha as well.
I'm very pleased with this fellow. He's just great.
The website is amazing.
Well, you really have to look him up and see
Yeah,
what he's done.
yeah.
It's
Very
done.
Yeah,
impressive.
very impressive.
I mean, the fact that he chose to come to us
Yeah.
is impressive.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good luck with pickleball.
I hate to suggest that IT is going to be faster than recreation, but.
Actually, I can go next, it's fine.
What's that?
I can go next.
Okay. Is that all right with you, Buck?
Fine with it, yeah.
Anybody else
I
wanna?
don't want to sit down my computer.
There is that.
Okay, so why don't you tell us about some of the projects, and I don't know if you have them, probably don't have handouts, but.
I don't have handouts. This is, I just had a copy of what was included in Jeremy's capital budget. Exactly. So I thought I would just speak to the three items that IT is putting forth for capital budget this year. The first one is free cash for server and computer upgrade and replacement. This is basically kind of a rinse and repeat of what we have done in past years, particularly this past year where we were able to utilize these funds for the replacement of some aging servers and equipment across town. We're obviously trying to do it a little bit piecemeal. This is the first time that we've been able to sort of put together a more contiguous plan of upgrade of aging equipment in many years. So this is essentially just a continuation of that. So we'd be asking for 14,500. It would be for the purchase of a minimum of 2 servers and 4 PCs or laptops. Likely with our use of vendor and being able to combine certain things, we often are able to stretch that a little bit. We right now maintain about 140 pieces of equipment across the, PCs or endpoints across the town. So, we're trying to do a handful at a time.
So, I'm sorry, you said 14,000?
14,500.
So yeah, these 2 IT items would be small capital.
Oh, yes.
Right, no, I understand, and he dropped in there, he was thinking free cash as well. I thought on the spreadsheet, the numbers were a little bit bigger, but that's all. 14,000, I mean, smaller numbers are good.
I can make an adjustment if, under your suggestions. Very similarly, item number 2 is for a townwide phone system upgrade and replacement. The current phone system we have in town, it was put in place a little more than 10 years ago. We know based upon the vendor that we're utilizing right now, it was the original vendor that put it into place, that many of the pieces of equipment that we're working with right now are already end of life. So we cannot get new replacement for some of that if we do have any issues or need repair. It would be essentially used equipment that would replace that, and of course would continue to age the system sort of beyond years of expectation. So this would be considered sort of a capital plan in order to do the full replacement cost of the system. It would not incur any sort of reoccurring costs on a per year basis. The existing costs that we have for the phone lines and the phone system that we carry now would be sufficient to cover the per year coverage costs of that new system we put in place. Basically meaning that, again, we do expect this to be a one-time fee for the full replacement of that. It wouldn't be something we would expect to come back to each year.
I'm sorry, is this like a VoIP sort of telephonic system? Or?
It is. So right now we have a VoIP system, voice over IP system in place currently, but all of the equipment is on premises. So we have essentially server units and switch units that are each individual building that all the phones effectively connect to over the network. The newer structure, it would be a cloud-based service. It's effectively what pretty much everything is going to. It would be continue to use, the vendor has proposed 2 separate options for us is where this number is coming from. So we have some choices that we can make in terms of the particular, ultimate vendor that we want to go to for the system, but they're effectively the same price. And that's based upon the number of handsets we have, the number of mailboxes, some of the features and functionality we'd want. The features of the newer system are beyond what we currently have. So we would have the ability to do things like have a mailbox or a physical phone type thing for committees or committee members, because again, it would be essentially virtual at that point in time, where the current infrastructure that we have now is not capable of doing.
And so does this allow like voicemails to get embedded into email, then you get an email like when you get a voicemail?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So we can do that now on a limited capacity. It really comes down to having like a physical handset with this type of structure because it's cloud-based. That same type of feature would now be expanded to effectively the entire system.
Okay. And that allows anyone who does have the physical phone to just dial into the cloud basically to retrieve and access.
Exactly, right, and some of the newer functionality that comes with these types of systems is like even like an app where, so people could put effectively the app on their phone, their cell phone, and it's effectively the same as being using the phone at their desk.
Like a call forwarding. and
Exactly, and it would be seamless, so, resident may call, the building inspector, and they will never know if they're physically sitting at a desk or they're using a cell phone, it just gets routed to the exact same number. Currently, it doesn't work exactly like that. We can call forward, but at the end of the day, if they call back, it would obviously look as, it's still coming from that individual cell phone number rather than sort of the central number where we would want it to.
I was gonna say, Jeremy, does everyone like the call forwarding? They can be, they're always expected to answer the phone. Okay, and so it sounds like going to the cloud means no server costs going forward. And so you save money in that respect over the lifetime, but service costs, like our operating costs are higher.
So the operating costs overall actually are reduced. And so right now, what it fundamentally means is that we're paying for the service costs for all of the phone lines that physically come into the building, as well as we have another T1 network connection just for phone system. So those would all be sort of encumbered under a single system. So we would actually reduce by not maintaining those monthly expenses with like a Verizon or Comcast.
Right.
And they would sort of get bulked into this type of a system. So from a run rate on a per monthly basis, our costs are expected to go down. With
So
this type of
operating
system.
costs and capital costs go down.
Correct.
Sounds good.
Sold.
Check, check.
What
I mean,
happens to
so
the old
it-
equipment?
Oh, sorry.
Excuse me, what happens to the old equipment?
The old equipment, it basically just gets turned back in. We don't get any credit for it. It's, it really just gets shredded.
And what's the lifespan of this?
Well, again, because this is more of a sort of cloud-based system, it doesn't rely as heavily on the physical equipment. So lifespan, really, it doesn't have a lifespan other than it would be sort of continuous software licensing. Year over year, I'm sure there'll be constant improvements and changes as things go on, but we would expect that we would still have the same type of structure of having licensing costs and service costs, on a per year basis beyond that anyway. The nice part is obviously going to this, we basically reduce down to the physical handsets as the only equipment that we maintain at the phone system. Right now, we
And
have,
those last more than 5 years.
those definitely last 5 years. I mean, the ones that we have now on the books are technically for 5 years, but they're already been in service for 10. So, we would expect the same thing for those. The individual phone units that we have now are on the order of, like, to replace, it's about $600 per physical phone unit. So, but with this style, again, because we're going to what's more of like a broad range carrier style, meaning there's dozens of companies that make that type of phone, where there's right now, because we're locked into a single system, there's only one company we can go to for replacement of those handsets. So it drives the cost of those individual handsets down. So a replacement of the newer handsets is only like $150 type of thing. And so we would expect that over time, even that to continue to go down. And so again, we're just reducing our reliance on, a single vendor equipment as well. So that's another advantage to this style.
Not stuck with Xfinity or? Any other questions? So those two items that you just discussed, one was 14,500 and the other one was 20,000, is that correct?
Yes.
So those are outside the express sort of purview of our committee. I mean, we can always say something, but it's like outside of our what we handle.
Well, we
So
appreciate it.
we by no means need to take a vote on it. If somebody wants to make a motion, we can vote on it, but it doesn't have actual standing.
Did we?
We have in the past. We have.
Yeah. Last year we did.
I mean, Cambridge votes to, endorse the Martian food or something like that. I mean, I'm sure our
Symbolic.
our committee can make votes too, but yes, in the past we have put our stamp of imprimatur on things.
I'll make a motion that we recommend the appropriation of 14.5 for the server computer replacement and 20,000 for the phone system under the non-reoccurring significant capital expenditure article.
Using non-capital appropriated funds.
Yes.
Is that what I heard at the end?
Oh, yes, you did. Echo.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Well, thank you, guys. I mean, obviously, we've been able to do some pretty amazing things, I would say, over the last couple of years. And these items, along with the last one here I'll talk about, has been part of, the stuff that Jeremy and I continually talk about, sort of the overall IT plan for Sherborn. And we recognize, obviously, that those are under the sort of value that would typically go to the committee, but it's nice to be able to sort of be transparent and give you guys a sort of sense of where things are going overall. So.
No, we appreciate it. And it's nice to know how the departments are, because at some point in time, either this project, some project will be higher than that. So we will have understood your processes and how you have a big plan on stuff. So we appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thanks.
So it is only those two, or is there a
The
third?
last one,
Okay.
yeah, the last one, this is,
30,000.
yeah, this is for 30,000. This is for a network switch and our core fiber connectivity upgrade. Similar to, and it's sort of loosely connected to the phone system as well. So when the original phone system was put into place, the vendor also put some physical network switches within a number of the buildings. Those are still the backbone of the entire network of the town of Sherborn. There is fiber that connects all of those individual switches across the different buildings. Those have also been end of life. They are no longer replaceable. Now, knock on wood, we've never had any issues. They work fantastic, but they are older generation. So this particular project is really looking to upgrade those 3 units to bring them up to the standard that we're using for everything else. And then that also sort of sets the foundation for, again, if we were moving forward with the phone system project, we would need to have these pieces of equipment in place in order to handle capacity.
So it would be required, like you couldn't model forward on the existing?
We've talked with the vendor, we would probably have some limitations into what features and what things we could do with the phone system versus sort of going with the full scope that we had originally spoke about. And again, we intentionally sort of did this as 2 separate things, trying to be very conscientious about sort of cost and what funds we may have available to us. So, we did it as 2 separate items and sort of that's why we're sort of calculating out.
So just the notion of if it ain't broke, do we need to fix it?
Mhm.
Obviously, you're saying it's older, but that doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't have the functionality, the capability. It's not adding additional maintenance costs, et cetera. Is that right?
Well, that's somewhat correct. So the issue that we have there is that it is of the older generation, so it has a very limited speed. So, I mean, we're basically at the absolute lowest end that the fiber can do right now comparatively to what we would typically expect for sort of an inter-building connectivity. So, layman terms are worried about 1 gig connection between all of the switches now. The newer generation stuff is capable of up to 50 or 100 gigs. So, orders of magnitude times what we're capable of doing. And that really, again, sets the foundation for being able to transmit larger amounts of data with the phone system, with backups, with, some of the other applications that we currently use. We do see some issues, particularly now that we've added the cameras across a number of different buildings. So we do see the load of that, at times having it just causes backups to be longer, causes data transfers to be longer. And so we know specifically that it's because of this older equipment.
Go ahead.
So really, it's like a $65,000 ask, right? So the other 2 in the beginning, if you can't do those 2, then, if you do those 2, then you really do need this.
We could have essentially merged those 2 together. Not necessarily the server or PC upgrade, but we could have merged these 2 together to make it sort of a 50,000, which would have been the full phone system plus the switching equipment type of thing. But again, sort of being conscientious of options, we sort of put it, I thought I would put it through as sort of separate items.
And what's the expected lifetime of the new fiber optic?
The expectation is that we would get a minimum of 15 years out of that.
And arguably, it's going from sort of like a 1 gig speed up to potentially 100 gig.
Correct. Interconnect between buildings.
And that's understood would be important for when the cameras are running. What's the other like big data transfer that goes between buildings?
The backups. So when we back up servers, back up and, the data, individual data across the different PCs.
And is that like a 1
It's
gig?
permanent in plants.
Yeah, that's true.
What 1 gig per second type? Is that what you're saying in terms of?
That's the limitation between the two switches. It's always less than that, which is the actual transfer rate. So again, you start whittling away. Now, we're starting to see that the connectivity between the switches is the bottleneck.
Questions? Comments? Or you have?
I see tier 2 too, so I think, is there any way to put it off a year? But I mean, have there been issues with security so far?
No, that comes under sort of a separate thing. This wouldn't represent any issues from a security perspective. This is sort of more in the plans of continuing to, maintain and improve the equipment over time. Again, these 3 pieces are the oldest that we have essentially in the fleet. Part of the other issue is if we do have a problem with them, they're not readily available on the shelf. So it's not something I could just go down to the store and buy and then everything goes back up and running. I mean, so to be down for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks would be pretty significant to any of the buildings that it impacts.
How long have these been in service?
Depending on which building, but they're 10 plus. So two of them are 11 years, one's 10.
What's the lead time on ordering something like this?
It can be variable, but at minimum, we generally see about 2 weeks, and best case scenario, up to 4 or worse.
Oh, okay, so like you got funding on July 1st, you can have these things in place by August 1st.
We could, but at that point in time, we would sort of go with based on, either the individual project or sort of, when I can slot it in just from my time.
No, I understand.
Versus like it's
It's not like the lead time of the ambulance. that you were talking
No.
Yeah. I didn't know like whether or not you have to order it because of the 6 months, 7 months.
about. Not quite that.
So what comes first, the $30,000 one and then the phones? System? Is it simultaneous?
No, I would probably go for the 30,000 first. I would have the foundational stuff in place first, and then I think the phone system, again, it's nice to be able to continue to offer those features if we didn't get the funding. I think we would probably just put in for that.
So if you didn't get the switches, you just pull back with the phones?
Probably. Yeah, or try to see if we had an alternate mechanism for funding.
So your priority is the 30,000 and then the other piece later.
Correct.
So do we re-vote on them? We have to re-vote.
I think it's just
No,
easier to
no,
put down pickleball.
Hey, wait a second.
Friendly fire.
You use the phones for pickleball?
The old handsets?
Yeah.
And we've got those air conditioners in the senior housing they can try.
I'll have an update on that.
Oh, okay.
So let's try to keep focus here.
Okay.
All right, so
Uh,
if I hear a motion to table, I could hear a motion to continue, I could hear a motion to talk about pickleball, I could hear a motion to vote. So,
I'll let you.
but we should move on.
Go, you make a motion.
Wait, I'm sorry, Sturgis has a hand up. Is there a comment from the audience?
Well, other than families of the members of the family love pickleball. I noticed I was scheduled to be on tonight, and with my discussions with Jeremy and Deb, we've decided that our request for the air conditionings, we can pay within our budget. so that you can just wipe our slate clean with a big 0. And I thank you very much. And I
Be 31,000.
So,
Under the revolving fund for elder housing.
so we very much appreciate you bringing that to our attention. And hopefully this means, if you want to go, you can sign out if you like, but, I appreciate you hanging around just to tell us that if that's.
Right. Well, I've enjoyed listening to the prior discussions, so don't worry. It's been informative, but the MBTA thing is going on planning board, and I did want to be part of that. So
Okay.
Thank you,
a
Kitty.
busy night, and my dog wants to go out. So
All right.
Good idea.
thank you very, very much for all you do. Have a good evening.
Me too. Okay, so, we should put Klaus out of his misery. I think we've asked all the questions we wanted to ask.
How much was last year to be approved? Or was there any capital? I'm sorry, I don't have.
Yeah, there
it.
were.
IT oftentimes comes out of free cash.
There were
So-
3 items, we were lower this year total than the 3 items last year.
Because
I
it
don't
was the security cameras and whatnot.
That's correct, that was the largest, that was 50,000.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're close to 80.
Okay.
Now, I make a motion that we recommend the appropriation of $30,000 for the network switch with the newly found free cash.
What,
Previously
the
in-
revolving fund? You wanna take it?
Oh,
I second.
So typically we don't comment on the source of funding. I just want to make sure
I
that
was
the
not
vote
gonna-
is clear.
I was not going to record that.
All right, so it's a proposal to recommend, we have,
Appropriation of,
no, the appropriation of $30,000 for the IT switches
right,
infrastructure. I heard a second.
Second.
All in favor?
I,
Aye.
Thank you guys again for your support, appreciate it.
Thank you for all the hard work you do to keep the town's infrastructure and IT
Absolutely.
network functioning. It's,
Absolutely, my pleasure.
it's very important.
It's not your pleasure all the time. Not all the time, 100%, yes.
and send flowers to Kitty.
Yes, yeah, Kitty with timely comment, so.
Okay, so, I guess we have to turn our attention to recreation and there's no other bidders. I'm joking. I appreciate you, being so patient.
Yeah, of course. So we have 2 items, and so I know everyone's excited to talk about courts for second year, but we also have another item on there.
Let's start with that.
I'll start with that one? Okay, let's start with that one. So we have on there mowers, which may seem a bit unusual for recreation, but it is our facilities that are going to be utilizing them. Could be our facilities that would benefit from their use compared to traditional mowing, and they'd be located permanently at our facilities during the season. So it's not something that for today, whether it's Sean's team, DPW, or if you have a third party doing it, they're bringing everything on site, and they're taking the mowers off and all that, it'd be a semi-permanent installation.
So just out of curiosity,
Yeah.
who mows the lawn or the rec fields now with what equipment?
DPW does a ton of it.
So in terms of the transfer of the man hours, is it going to be rec department or DPW?
So it's a good question. It'd be a reduction in man hours in the sense that the mowing that Sean's team does or anyone does requires someone to be there. The mowers themselves, once they're installed and they're working properly, don't require any man hours except for occasional routine maintenance, which is minimal. So you're talking about replacing blades, lubrication, maybe a wheel or a bearing or something like that. But for the most part, it's set and forget.
And this is only for Laurel at this point?
Correct. You want to start with
Have other towns taken this step and have sort of remote.
Yes,
Auto
so
mowers.
so the specific mowers that we're interested in using, which are Husqvarna mowers, the specific model was currently implemented and being used in the city or town of Wellesley. I'm not sure how they refer to themselves. But they're one of many, and it's, when you look at where, in the direction of where, specifically for athletic fields, and things such as golf courses and then large academic campuses, this is the direction everyone's heading because of it's more efficient, it's greener, it's way less man hours, and the equipment's actually, relatively easy to maintain and has a lighter footprint in terms of the weight and, a person on top of a piece of equipment or riding it. It's just a wild mower. That's a lot lighter.
And they're greener because they are more efficient, because they're electrical, why are they green?
Yeah, so they run on battery, so there's no emissions, at least at the point of cutting. Depending on where your electrical generation is coming from and how you're using the grid, but it's so no petroleum is being used, and it's just a more sustainable method of maintaining your landscape.
Our neighbor behind us that backs up to us has robotic mowing, and which keeps our dog entertained. But they have difficulty with interfering signals from their invisible fence. Is there anything at Leland Farms that would interfere with this?
Not to my knowledge. I mean, we did do a 2-month test at Jameson over the fall with a Husqvarna robotic mower, just to see what that experience would be like, see what type of issues would pop up, the quality of the cut of grass, the amount of time once it was set up that we needed from recreation or DPW, stay on top of it, that type of thing. And we didn't have, even with all the stuff going on around, Jameson between the fire department and the school, residential and whatnot, we didn't have any issues, at least with the implementation that we had. I would expect less interference. There's less competing airspace there.
This system utilizes slightly different technology too than the
Residential.
homeowner one.
Yeah.
There's actually it's called an RTK station. It's a satellite station that all that many of these little rovers that you have communicate with it to make the satellite corrections, because it's all GPS based. A lot of the homeowner ones, they actually make one you almost use like a dog fence.
Yeah.
And it just finds its way and it does its thing.
Yeah.
I don't know which kind they have, so
Okay.
you pick up those interferences.
Yeah, that's a good point. So a lot of the older models and residential models are wired applications, where this is a wireless application.
All right, may I ask a question? So what if somebody goes on the field and there's like a malfunction and it's sitting there in the middle of the field? How much does it weigh? I think, how do you?
Yeah, so that's something that actually, those were my concerns when we put it at, so the difference between Jameson and Laurel was, my main concern was walking out.
It
So
was more what, I'm sorry?
was someone like stealing it or walking out
Oh, I
with it.
see, yeah,
Because-
that, yeah, then there's that, yeah.
Right, so because out of Jameson, we had it out there,
Vandalism.
24/7. And so, those are kind of same concerns and questions I had out of the gate. So embedded within these things is basically, commercial grade air tag. So if it used the geofence, we get notified on our phones, whoever has it on their phones, the application, and you have immediate tracking. So, you basically have half the town of Sherborn converging on this person who's trying to run away through remote.
So
So
only the
The
first
network
one,
switches are up to date.
Oh, I think that would be your,
right?
Dave, how big are the actual units?
Yeah,
yeah, so the one that we tested at Jameson was actually not,
Is it like that green? Can you say, is it like that? green one there?
so which model is that?
I think it's probably the consumer one though.
Yeah, so they're like roughly the size of a carry-on suitcase,
Mhm.
like the residential, the smaller commercial grade ones. The ones that we've looked at be like half the size of this, in terms of dimensionally, half the size of the top of this table.
Like a 42-inch like mower deck.
Yeah,
Like that.
yeah, something like that. So we were using something, I think that had 20-something inch mower deck. This one had something closer to mid-30s or low 40s. And we'd have two of them. And the reason why you need two is because of the amount of acreage each unit can handle. And so if you're mowing, if you had if you had the amount of acres we have at Laurel and you wanted to maintain it for residential purposes, not for athletic purposes, you may be able to get away with it. But for how we would cut it and the height that we want it, and the frequency in which it should be mowed, to keep it at that height, you need to. So in any case, but getting back to the size thing and all that, the other question you're asking is if there's a obstruction. So whether it be a person or an animal or trash or somebody who's.
Water bottles, soccer balls,
Yeah.
lacrosse
Hair
balls.
bands.
Oh, you've been along?
Yeah, no, I mean, this is like the number one question I had. I wanted everyone else to ask the questions. I'm like, how many man hours is it gonna take to pick all of that stuff up every single time?
Right, so you undoubtedly, in terms of habits, we'd have to be a little bit more ruthless in our disposal of things that are left behind, or at least, centralize a location for it and then discard it, because you can't have things in the way. What happens is it'll go around it, but then you're not mowing that part of the grass, right? So it's not going to hurt the mower. It just makes it more efficient. And, we want it to mow all the grass, not just some of it, or most of it. But if it hits something a little bit more substantial, or something runs into it, right, like, or runs into something that wasn't expected, like a divot in the ground, or say a dog got out there in a hole. Depending on the nature of what makes it stop, you can remote start it from your device. But if that's not possible, you have to go down and physically inspect what's going on and then restart it manually. And say, okay, yeah, it's okay to keep going.
You get an alert on your phone or
You
something.
get a little alert on your phone.
Did that happen during your test?
Yeah, so during the test, the first week of the test, at Jameson, I was ready to throw my phone in the farm pond because the thing was going off like seemingly, every couple hours. I was like, this is not productive. But eventually, you actually, within less than a week, you get to the point where you've identified all the imperfections in your field, and anything that was left behind that you didn't see the first time. And it got to a point after a couple of weeks where I was getting an alert once every 7 to 10 days. Someone could be remedied remotely, but I wasn't going down there on a daily basis like it was in the first week or so. So there was a period of time during, I'll say the initiation setup where there is going to be some investment time to figure out what maybe some of the exclusion boundaries that you set up for Jameson, for example. We had exclusion boundaries around the pitcher's mound and the dugouts, so it wasn't going to try to mow through the dugout fence, and, that kind of thing. So once you have all those things identified and everything's smoothed out, it becomes really, really smooth. Like there'd be times where it's like, wow, geez, it's been a week. I haven't heard from my mower. And I'd go on and make sure it was actually still there, A, and B was still mowing, because I was like, I was almost in disbelief that.
Mower never texts me anymore.
It's like kids, all of a sudden they don't need you anymore.
So-
How do you know it was mowing?
So I felt like I got ghosted. Well, I mean, as part of my daily routine when I'm in season, I'm driving by all these fields all the time anyway, for various reasons. And so I'm constantly over at, Jameson, because we have, baseball diamonds or whatever, for one reason or another, but, and I live close, downtown, so I'm always looking at it. But when I go over, it's the first thing I do is I was always curious to say, okay, like, what's the quality of the mow? And my only complaint really with the mow, the height was always perfect, is that, and this won't be a problem at Laurel, was that because we were on a smaller commercial unit, So the lines were really, really close together. And like optically, it was driving me nuts because I'm like, I'm used to, Sean's guys with these wide decks and having, things like that, and just having like a million lines going across the, the outfield. I was like, okay, that looks a little wonky to me. But in terms of the quality of the cut, it was great and consistent. And it was always being, this thing works in rain, it works overnight. It just keeps working. And when it runs out of juice, it automatically goes back to its base station, it recharges, and it goes right back out again. It just keeps flowing. And we had time set up because of Pine Hill, when that was in session. I think it was between like 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. to not have it mow, because we got kids coming and going and whatnot. We had our own afternoon programs for T-ball, had down Jameson in the fall. And like pre-K soccer, that we use at Jameson as well. And so we had boxed out times where it couldn't mow. But even with that, like there's plenty of time when it was dark that I could be mowing. And I don't know. I mean, aside from the dog bark, I mean, I would hope your experience is the same as mine was. It's scary quiet.
Oh, yeah, and our dog doesn't bark at it, she's transfixed.
Oh,
She sits there and watches it.
stares at it. All right, well, it's entertainment. Then. That could be worse. So people spend a lot of money to entertain their dogs. So, I think if we hadn't done the 2-month, demo in partnership with DPW, it'd be much more difficult to sit in front of you with a straight face and talk about some of these things. But now that I've seen it in action and I understand it, so the light bulb goes off. It's like, Sean's guys, I don't know, he did the calculation, was it 800, 900 hours we're down there over the course of the year?
At Laurel?
Well, I think it was just Laurel alone, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it fell off hard because of the drought. Unfortunately, that killed everything. But we had the polar opposite all the way through July.
Yeah,
We couldn't keep up with it. We literally couldn't keep up with it. It's a pretty big drain on resources.
That means you could help Garden Club a little bit more.
What's that?
Could help Garden Club a little bit more.
Oh, yeah.
There are
Sure,
hours,
good.
there's certainly hours that, will get sucked up. Doing
I
other
have
things
to
that need to be done. But I mean, speaking of the drought, actually, working on irrigation at Laurel as well. So maybe for next season, if there is a drought, there still would be water available.
Yeah, I mean,
the fields would need to know.
in those situations, even if it was like a pseudo drought, where we don't go like 3 months straight without water, you may not want to throw water on top of that anyway. But you get to these periods of time where you go a couple of weeks, without rain, we would be using the water that we store, to help keep the fields green.
So there's another project separately funded to add wells and irrigation in Laurel. That was funded by ARPA funds, federal funds.
Right, what's the status of that?
So the well work, most of that is done. It's going, the irrigation piece of it is going out to bid in February.
The wells have been dug and proven. They didn't yield quite as much as we wanted, but they yielded enough such that it was viable to add storage and irrigation to a good portion of it.
Well, that's only for Jameson Fields, it's not for any other.
Laurel.
I'm sorry, Laurel.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I think I remember we talked about this last year. So that is to be fiscal year 2027, am I coming on?
The money's available now, so it's whenever we are able to get the design on bid and weather allows for it, essentially.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
Late fall.
field usage is. well.
Oh,
Be done a year from now.
they like done,
Yeah.
ready to go.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
I think a lot of that's due to the usage of the field in the spring.
yeah, so like springs are busy season down at Laurel. So the ideal time to start digging up the place and do the irrigation type work would be as soon as the spring season concludes. And there's, according to Arkansas, the work should be able to be completed before the fall season starts. Doesn't mean we wouldn't have any impacts in terms of maybe.
No, I understand. Is that hydro seeding it then, or is that putting?
Yeah, the irrigation, adding the ability to
water.
irrigate water.
Yeah.
No, I understand that, but like, once you tear it up,
The
you
field
put in.
surface, I mean, there'll be some areas of trenching that need to be restored, replanted, but not the whole field.
Yeah, and the
Oh,
area,
so it's not gonna be that dramatic.
no, and most of the areas that we identified for the trenching is specifically located in the spaces between the fields. So we're hoping to minimize
Feel it back.
the field impact.
But having the water there is going to improve the field service over time.
They use that machine too. They basically pull that line through the ground with a minimal slit. Like, you know, I mean,
it's like a trencher.
yeah, but it basically cuts it. But see, it's just a minimum slit that they basically pull that pipe through.
My
Pretty
brother
impressive.
I get there, through that in September this year.
Yeah.
It's concrete.
So charging stations, you're all set there? I mean,
Well, partly, I mean, byproduct of the irrigation part, we're getting power to the site.
okay, so that's gonna be looked
So
at as
we're-
part of the ARP. Okay,
Yeah, so that would be that part of it, because otherwise that'd be a cost.
right.
That part of it we take care of with the irrigation project.
So there's 2 units, two?
Well, the ask is for 3. There's
Okay.
2, the 2 main units would do about 89% of the facility. The 3rd unit is designed, has a better all-wheel, it's like an all-wheel drive, smaller, lower. That allows us, we have areas that are sloped around the perimeter
Mhm.
of the facility, and then we also have the infields of where the parking is.
Okay, so that's the $4,000 unit.
That's the inexpensive, yeah.
So it's 2, do you mind if I'm just trying to understand this? So we have, oh, I see, they're $32,000 each.
Correct.
And then that add-on for the 4, so that's 65. And then that add-on that you just mentioned on the steep slope and the parking infield is 4,000. I guess that's,
Right, that's just to take care of everything that,
so that's kind of like a quasi third one?
yes,
Or- Okay.
yeah, yeah, I mean, the lion's share of the expense is $1 million.
What's the warranty on these things?
So it's a question that I've had from the provider of the quote, which is, I've gotten a few different numbers on this. I've seen 5 years, 8,000 hours, and I've seen 2 + 3, which comes with a 2, you get the 3-year extended. In either case, that would be 5, but it's not clear to me whether we'd be getting the 5, 8,000, or we'd have to pay for the extended. That's what I'm trying to get clarity on.
Okay. The lifetime expectancy of these
So
things.
Husker Mountain and the provider will tell you 10 years. The fact is, it's a relatively new market, so there's not a lot of mows out there that have been out for 10 years. So I think somewhere between probably their, warranty period of 10 years is reality. Like, I think it's gonna depend on maintenance, how we use it versus someone else,
Right.
that type of thing.
Sean, do you have a sense on what the value of, say, 100 man hours is for your show? If you could put a dollar value on a man hour and multiply by 100.
So there's 2 different ways to look at, we have kind of our average hourly plus an overhead. Which would be, close to what? Would you say the overhead, say overhead is a third?
30%, yeah, about a third.
Is it like 6,000 a year?
So,
I'm
30
just
plus
looking
a
at-
third, so 40.
so $40 per hour, and that's even saved 300 man hours per year. You're talking about a significant amount.
And David got some quote, because you either look at my man hours and say, are you shedding those man hours or you outsource? Right, if we weren't doing it. So he got some rough quotes.
Yeah, so one of the things, like, we couldn't in good faith put our mowing out to bid, because that's not what we're looking to do right now. But I was able to talk to some other providers who have seen recent projects bid. Closest analog or comparable for us would be a recent one that was put out to bid in April of this year. And the facility size, our total facility size between all 3 fields are 16 to 17 acres. It was a 21-acre facility, combined facility. And they were paying for that. The lowest bid came back at $1,200 per cut, and that's getting cut twice a week. So that would be, if you get that down to like a Laurel size thing, you're looking at probably, close to $700 per cut twice a week. And so you do 26 weeks for the growing season, and you can get an idea of what you would be, at a minimum, be spending to outsource that.
Plus equipment.
Plus equipment.
And when you said Wellesley, the town of Wellesley, I mean, have any of the rec departments used this and for how long?
So Wellesley just started using it. They provide us references for people who have used it longer. You know, nothing, most people that have it, they're doing more of it. So if they started with, kind of like we're approaching it, like, oh, let's start up, Laurel. They're like, oh, we could save that much time, like literally almost no man hours once it's set up and you get all your error messages cleared out from whatever you run into.
So if they move the goals around, like daily, which
Wow,
happens,
yeah,
that doesn't mess them up at all.
Well, no, well, again, if we have things located where they're not supposed to be, we can create exclusion zones. So if we wanted to have like a parking lot to keep whatever in it, corner flags or goal anchors or whatever, you can do that. And most will avoid that area. But if it's trying to mow something in some way, it just makes it more efficient. It's just not gonna mow that area. So it's not gonna hurt the mower. It's still gonna get all the grass around it. It's just not gonna mow that part. Right?
How many times does it mow like the full field?
So never.
Well, no, I mean, like, if one night, like, the goal, nobody put the goals back, and it avoided those goals, like.
Oh, I see.
If it's mowing like
We're
3
looking
days
at the
later,
grass
it's just gonna get.
every other day or every third day?
No, actually, it'd be out there 4 to 5 days a week. It would hit every part of the facility.
Oh, so you wouldn't even really notice it if you missed the spot for a day or two.
So if the goal's been walking place for a day or two,
Yeah,
don't care.
nobody cares, okay, yeah. that makes
Yes.
sense.
Yes.
and Klaus, is, part of that network capability, would I have better internet connection here too?
Possibly.
Oh, it's a dog.
Oh, so that wasn't.
I'm just curious, I'm sorry.
Oh, is it not working?
No, it's just slot.
Did she second?
Yeah, it might be.
I just wanted to, that, right, is part of the internet?
It would-
Lisa would be
He's
faster,
working on it, yep.
okay.
Okay, so
Might have
with
been,
respect
might have been conveniently
to,
timed.
So
Yeah.
besides so I don't want to belabor it, but besides the ideal grass height, which all the athletic teams would love, we would love. What that helps do as well, which we have a real problem with down there, is inhibit weed growth. So if you're not allowing weeds to flower and you're keeping your grass and good height, then it can potentially decrease our operating costs. What we spend money on top of everything else is weed control. And sometimes, we want to be able to redirect that money elsewhere. So there could be operational savings for us on the backside as well.
You had me at weed control.
And you're gonna run a contest. Peter suggested that the kids name the mowers.
I think the recreation department support that.
What if they're running and a kid is there, and what if there's some kind of,
Like say,
Well, in Laurel, that's not gonna happen.
well, no, let's say they hop the fence for the sake of argument. Like it has, motion. What's the more likely occurrence to occur is someone purposely tries to run into it. If there's something in the way, it's gonna stop.
like instead of cow tipping, they're like, mower tipping.
Say cow tipping.
Well, I guess we can have some.
I never did that.
Where are you from?
I just thought of like some
We've never done
insane
that
thing.
I
I
mean,
didn't do that either, I'm just saying.
I mean, if there's,
Some,
so if we have power, you bring a valid concern. So if we bring power on the site, we had, houses, cameras and.
That would be an additional
Well-
expense.
okay.
That's out of scope.
Can I make a motion? How about, do you mind if we round up a little bit? And then instead of 60,527.90, we make it like 61,000 even?
I think there's a revised number.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
yeah.
that was 2024 pricing. So a new proposal came in with 2025 pricing.
Well, this is, 11/14, I was gonna ask that, it's good for 30 days, so that's obviously,
Yeah, we're past that.
Okay,
So
so what's the new cost?
60,
You may want to round that one too.
oh,
$67,087.90.
Um,
so went up 7,000.
67,000.
I mean, it's actually a discounted price. It's utilizing source, is it well sourced or source well?
What? Source well.
Source well. So
Yeah, this is a state bid contract.
so this isn't, you know,
Will they hold the pricing? If
you mean the 2024
I
pricing?
think this is the fiscal year
this pricing here, will this be good for if town meeting approves it, will you have enough money?
That's the 67?
Yeah.
Yes, that's what they told us.
Okay,
They're gonna hold this price for the fiscal year, right?
Right.
So.
so
Oh, go ahead.
go ahead. I move that we recommend the appropriation of $67,088 for the purchase of robotic mowers for Laurel Field.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
sorry. You know what I'm thinking. There's extra time now for weed whacking that island.
That's, yes.
800
I'm
man.
not saying we're gonna weed whack that island every week, but I mean, that's the crux of it. Everyone wants to know where those man hours go, and that's where they go.
In the water truck,
Absolutely.
thank you.
The water truck got held up a little during the drought, because we don't typically move a lot of water in the drought. Well,
Which island are we talking about?
1627, the
Oh.
brick, the rotary thing.
she takes care of the island and tends to need to be weed whacked. But that, I mean, me and Jeremy talked about it today, when people, well, give us back those man hours. Well, no, the man hours are going, so there's work to be done, there's always work that doesn't get done.
South.
Okay, moving on.
You can look up the times you texted me. Hopefully we'll trend better next year,
Thanks.
and then a couple of years that I will.
Thanks, Cliff.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Thanks, Close.
So now on to the entree. So, well, thank you for the support for the mowers. So the core project, we're back. Another year older, the cracks are bigger.
Can I cut to the chase?
Yeah,
What's different with this project versus the last one,
nothing except for the cost.
which is now?
Closer to, well, we don't know what ultimately is going to come back to bid. It could actually come back to bid somewhere close to what we were talking about last year, which is the $499. Right now, I don't know if Jeremy got a chance to distribute it.
I think I forwarded it out by email, I couldn't pull it up.
That's okay. I have a hard copy of this literally just came in tonight. So the Recreation Commission hasn't even looked at this yet. So you kind of get the first glance at it. So we had, our concern is
You have,
it was coming back to capital budget and or town meeting and saying, okay, for a project that's not going to be worked on until 18 months after the original estimate was developed last winter, we wanted to have updated numbers for consideration so that we wouldn't be underestimating it. So these are without any, feedback or changes, from Recreation Commission back to the Carolyn Community Associates who helped develop this. But this was their first pass at saying, okay, this is what the upper end of what you're looking at if you were to include all of your contingencies, COLA, escalation and whatnot. So where we were at, $499 last year, this is the base cost of this project as estimated is at $579.
But the same scope of work.
No changes to scope of work, no changes to the line items. So if you're looking through, like, say, for example, within, each of the things that we had on there where the design itself has changed. So
The intent is this is gonna go out to bid. So
correct. Well, we're going to discuss, we have a proposal from this firm that's going to be reviewed by the Recreation Commission to potentially put out to bid ahead of town meeting, so we actually have real numbers for town meeting to consider. So I'll tell you, and again, this is all anecdotal, and so I'm not putting this out there because this door can swing in both directions, higher or lower. For example, a comparable project that this firm estimated and worked on, just through the construction bid, through the construction, was Project Millbury, similar in scope and size, a little bit less. Total, it was like, as far as it was $499 last year. Last year, theirs was like $450, but went out to bid this past April and actually came back a little bit less than what they had estimated. So it's like, I feel like they have a pretty good handle based on the number of projects that they do, that they're estimating is about where it should be. So, we'll see. It could be, it could be come back a little higher, come back a little lower. Jeremy, one thing that has changed since last year, and the question that came up last year that I couldn't really give a great answer to, is around grants. And so, talked a little bit about accessibility. It's one of the components of this. The Commonwealth does have a program where you could put in, for grants for accessibility. The issue we had was the town didn't have a master plan that prioritized, what disability projects it wanted to work on. One of the things the town has done since last, we've been together, is that the town was successful in getting a grant to develop a master plan for accessibility from the Commonwealth. So we don't have a master plan yet. I would envision that foreseeably this could be part of that master plan, this type of project, and you go after. Now, whether that could all happen, fast enough for this project to chase down those monies, I don't know.
What's like, how much money would that even be?
It wouldn't dramatically, it wouldn't take us like, make it, half the cost. But if you look at the parts of the project that are tied to accessibility, which is, parking, some of the parking, the walkway from the parking lot, some of the site work that needs to be done to make things level, there's a bit of work there. So, is it going to be half the project? No, but it could be tens of thousands of dollars, that could be helpful and offset some of this increase. I don't know, they will have the plan time.
Yes, I'm not sure, but
I'm not sure either.
on that.
Yeah, I think
The value of doing it.
We couldn't use the former master plan that had that recreational facility in it
so.
as a priority
We say master
for
plan.
ourselves. We already had an ADA self-assessment, or we did it along with the previous master plan. So we weren't able to use that?
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know. I don't think it's that. I do believe though, when the disability committee was discussing the work to be done on the master plan, I thought they needed to targeting to finish it or get it done by June 30th.
Well, that's what the grants funds have to be expended by June.
Is that what it is?
Right.
Okay. So
there's a deadline.
So do you know,
Expenditure.
in your experience, let's just say for the sake of argument, it was done by that.
Yeah.
Like the cycle for the Commonwealth, it seems, for the disability grants is to get them in, I think, late spring, early summer, and then they make decisions in Q4. Is that accurate?
Probably.
Or at least that's what happened this most recent
A
cycle.
lot of these programs, they vary by the program, but that seems to make sense.
Yeah, so
It can offset the cost, but you're not gonna have it before time.
we're not gonna have that information by town meeting, but it could potentially offset the cost if you're doing this project in the next fiscal year.
I don't mean to be insensitive, but what is the issue of accessibility to the tennis court?
Oh, It's
Spectator?
awful. You can't get to it.
Is it a spectator?
If somebody in a wheelchair wants to play,
Can
Yeah.
you play tennis? Is there such a thing?
yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's people,
I am
there's,
insensitive.
especially now with pickleball, I mean, like, there's different people, different, levels of ambulation or ability that may want to play, but they just simply can't get to it. Like,
Oh, okay.
That's the issue right now, is they just can't get in. There's no way to get in. It's accessible.
And it looks like the pickleball court is really the least expensive, it's like 48,000, did I see? I mean, it's just.
Yeah, if you look
do it
at,
to phases also.
if you back out of like the stuff that has to be done in that area anyway, even if you were just to raise the practice board and turn it into, grass, or a pad for future use.
Right,
Like, you like the incremental cost of adding the pickleball courts there is like, it's like 30 grand. It's like the least expensive part of the whole plan.
Right,
Yet it's one of the cheapest ways to create capacity for court sports. You know, we have a growing, desire for people to play pickleball. So you could cut it out, but this is like your one shot, while you're doing all that work that could support it anyway, to get it there at a relatively low cost.
well, I'm just thinking, put the backboard, we talked about this last year, put the backboard by, by one of the tennis courts.
Yep.
And then the tennis courts, at least, 2 or 3 of them could be outfitted with lines, or I don't know if they're outfitted with lines or not, but with pickleball. And then maybe the following year, do the pickleball concession stand, all that demo. So you're still having that accessibility factor. I know you don't like my
No,
face.
that's the thing, you're excavating the area anyway.
So you're gonna be digging up stuff that you've already,
Yeah.
you'd be
I know.
redoing stuff.
You can't break it up. Just picture the grades as you walk through there, picture, okay, how much work do I have to do to just make an 88 path? Well, that thing's in the way, it's not even the right.
Yeah, I know,
everything's
I've
wrong.
gone through it, I know.
You gotta go in and just bulldoze the whole thing.
And if it was a substantial part of the cost of the project, I would say, yeah.
Yeah, but
let's.
it's not, yeah, it's,
And even if the court was in decent shape, I'd say do the pickleball court first, but, because at least the tennis court's on the other side of it. But given the location of it, and given that the court's in the worst shape, you go to the courts anyway, you're gonna have all that equipment out there, all the people, all the skill.
and
You
this,
can't go back.
And it's shutting
This-
down the whole area.
Yes, while you're doing the work.
and this includes a new fence, right, where we're saving the lights, is that what
We're past,
was?
what we are holding off on is lights.
Right,
They're midlife. One of the poles may or may not survive between now and the work gets done, but that's okay, it's just one pole. It's a much different project than replacing all our lights. But the type of fixture that we have, and the type of poles that we have, we're expecting to get another, 4 to 8, 6 to whatever years out of it. But the lights don't have to be done right now. We'd like them to be done right now, but they don't have to be done right now.
any further studies on use, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I mean, we have, well, a couple things going on in terms of usage. So usage has never been higher in terms of, for the things that we do know what it's used for, in terms of the number of times that it's used for practices by the town, the number of registrations we get for the programs that are offered. The one thing that we always can count on is selling out our racket programs. So anytime we offer a racket program there, it gets sold out, we have a wait list. So the demand for the courts, definitely at the youth levels there. At the adult level, for the people that are playing pickleball, they're constantly asking for more pickleball space. In fact, we have purchased 2 additional pickleball nets, portable nets, in hopes of lining, more court space so they can use it. Now, in tandem with that, we're going to try, and it's just a question of whether we do it within our software or if we use a third-party software. We're going to try to implement a reservation system.
Mhm.
That would give us more, data around the when and the frequency and all that. But I can tell you anecdotally, the courts are being used. It's actually the only recreation facility that's available. Unless it snows again, which hasn't seemingly in like 500 days, that has jinxed us. We're open year round now. We've actually installed an AED, a heated cabinet AED at the Jameson Snack Shed, because people are using the facilities, 12 months a year. We used to shut down the courts in the wintertime. We don't do that.
Yeah,
We
I
used to
would,
float an ice rink on them in the winter too.
I would definitely, because I've just played pickleball myself at other places, it is really nice to have somebody know they have to end at 11 o'clock.
Yes. Understood.
And so then that's, you don't feel weird saying, oh, they're filled up, I don't want to chase
Yeah, I mean,
people out.
well, not only that, but we'd like to,
Else,
we have a sign that says for Sherborn residents only, and we know
Yes.
for a fact that there's people, just as we're going to their towns, people come to our town, use our facilities. So with the reservation system, we can kind of gatekeep that a bit better in terms of ensuring that if we want residential use that's being utilized for residents, we can also charge non-residents a fee to pick up the slack that's not being utilized by the residents. So the residents could go up to 7 to 14 days out. You have non-residents paying to use the space that the residents aren't using within 48 hours. That's what a reservation system would give us. We're not gonna make enough money to pay for the pickleball part of it. But what you will do is you'll get some revenue, you get gatekeeping on when people start and finish, as well as prioritizing residential use versus non-residential use.
Exactly. And knowing how many people are really using it.
Correct. You'll get better beat on that.
Well, we voted to approve last year. Or to recommend last year. Shall I make a motion to recommend this year?
I mean, you could, I mean, to be honest, the way I was looking at this is that there are a number of big ticket items that our committee is going to be considering.
Mhm.
So whether or not we sort of table these things, because I'm also, besides what is sort of good for the town, I'm cognizant of what may get through all, town meeting. And if you have 4 or 5, $500,000, $600,000 projects, like, I don't want the tennis court to be like something that gets up to town meeting, just gets voted down every year. Whether or not if we wait to see what else.
Well, I mean, it had a majority, I think the issue was it just didn't have enough to get past the threshold needed for the override. Am I correct in that?
The borrowing, no.
For borrowing, you need
2/3.
It needed 2/3, so it was
Borrow the project.
we weren't off by that much last year. And I think there were some people that were surprised and disappointed it didn't pass, that were even at the meeting or were not at the meeting. And so I think, I'm hopeful this year there's gonna be, more of a groundswell of support for it, both leading into it. So,
And of course, I have to ask one more question, I'm sorry.
I mean, look, if people make motions, we're gonna make a vote.
Did we make a motion? I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I'm
Corey
just
did.
asking if we
Oh, I
should.
apologize.
I was just thinking procedurally, this might be one we table until we see how everything else not everything else, but some other things fall out.
You'll likely have a real price before town meeting too, but it'll be late. I mean,
yeah,
it'll be a last minute vote, certainly after the hearing. So it won't be.
Yeah, I mean, we would have to be making our recommendation before we have a specific dollar amount. I get that. I'm looking at what the total ask was at the bottom of the plan, and that number far exceeds anything we've done in recent history. So some things are gonna have to shake out. So whether or not some projects get pushed because that's inevitable. I mean, frankly, I thought the tennis court project was best last year because of kind of like the flow of everything, knowing that there were going to be bigger things coming down.
Mhm.
Now it seems like there's a big lump.
Yeah, if you want to defer, I'll go with that. I do have to say, though, that I think there's a little bit of pent-up annoyance about the way the article was discussed last year. Is that fair to say?
When.
I don't know what you mean, Laurie.
We're being
I abstain from that, but what other people comment on, I can't really say, but what I will say is that I feel like there are more proponents out there that had the opportunity to speak at town meeting, and I think if there were other voices, I don't think we had as much difficulty passing.
I agree.
I agree too.
So I guess that's what I can say, but, yeah.
I mean, again, we looked at the project, we think that your estimates, they seem to be checking out based upon all the hard work you've done on it. I mean, the design makes logical sense about, how to place things, increase accessibility. All the things are good, and yes, from my opinion, it's just a question of, there's a big capital budget ask this year, and so only time will tell whether or not that ask, because sometimes things are like this when it starts, and then we get through a couple of meetings and things like, we just had it tonight where someone said, we actually are withdrawing our capital.
Yeah, so I will say that, the last thing I'll say is just a cautionary tale about Millbury. Millbury was in a similar situation to us, town of Sherborn, where they had a court that was long past its life expectancy. And today, no one's still been able to confirm to me when this thing was actually built. The last time it was, overhauled. It was long before I was here. But it's well past its life expectancy, and it has structural issues. No one disputes that. There will be a point in time where we'll have to shut down the courts. And that cycle to wait for them to reopen is what Millbury just went through. They had to close the courts. And that's what got people's attention finally. But my worry is that, you can only kick the can down the road so many times. If you're going to support courts in Sherborn, it's probably going to have to get done at some point. It's an asset of the town they want to maintain. And that cost is only going to go up. So if it, it's not a fire engine, right? But
Or an ambulance.
but it's hard for me to envision, going 12, a year or two without offering, youth tennis programs as part of our summer programs, our spring and fall programs, as well as all the adult usage for tennis and pickleball. And that's the thing that's always in the back of my head is like, yeah, you can, defer this, but at some point we're going to close those courts. We're going to have to. It's going to be unsafe.
What are the next big ticket items that you see coming down?
For recreation? I mean, in my opinion, by far, Jeremy, you probably have the longer term plan right there in front of you. I think by far, this is probably the most significant one over the next 10 years, I would imagine.
That's the biggest, and then you go through the ball fields on like a rotating.
On a rotating basis, yeah.
I saw that Jameson 2, or whichever the big one is. Four. That, is that gonna be in the spring when you do that one?
Yeah, so, I don't want to get too deep into the Jameson stuff, but there was a window where we had, where someone's interested in helping us, or helping the town, potentially do lights at Jameson 1. It didn't come to pass, but if it had come to pass, it would have changed how we would have approached Jameson 4. So we had to kind of wait to see that play out first, because it would effectively double the capacity of Jameson 1. It would have changed potentially the need for having 4 diamonds, possibly going down to 3, which would save the town money. It would also change maybe how we want to lay out Jameson 4 to maximize the space that where the diamond will no longer be for other purposes. So long story short, it's coming up. We held off on doing the work this fall. We wanted to see where the lights may go. There's no action on that yet. Can't say there'll never be, but there was no action taken this year on it.
Well, hopefully you guys are able to work some miracles with Jameson 1. So, I'm just talking about the field, not necessarily the lights.
Oh, yeah.
The field is in horrific condition.
Oh, I mean 4, sorry.
The one with the snacks.
Well, that one just got redone this past.
Yeah, but the field, because of various drought, stock.
Oh, yeah, that's the grass.
The
Yeah.
grass.
Yeah.
It was beautiful this spring.
Yeah, it was great this spring, but
Couldn't put water on it. It was, weeds.
yeah, unless you have irrigation at your facility, every recreation department had a rule of fall. All the fields are pretty poor.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Sure.
And I don't think we need you back for whenever we do make the vote, or an update necessarily. I think we have all the information we need from you and all the arguments about why it's a great project.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Barry. Do you have furniture?
I think you have one more, and Christina Gallant is staying on.
Oh, I apologize.
She's here to lend some support. So I think the last agenda item you have is for furnishings in the town hall meeting room.
Yes.
Chairs, tables, to make that space more flexible and more ease with it to set up and take down, and also as a refresh. The chairs, we've met there before, there's a lot of stains on some of the upholstery. The tables, we've had issues with the pine tables, are beautiful, but they are hard to move around and have broken legs and whatnot. So This request would refurnish that room with more usable equipment to create that, make that space more flexible and to save Christina's back. The Council on Aging utilizes that space a lot for their programming. Christina actually just reviewed some of the usage of that space. Their offices are on the same floor, so it's a great space for them. It's convenient, located, but the chairs are heavy. The tables are hard to move around. They use some small little card tables that are a little rickety for certain programs. So this request would modernize the space, make it more flexible, and help Christina's crew with their setup and takedown. And that they do all the setup and takedown for their events. Price tag is $25,000 funded by free cash. We've had several vendors take a look. In your package, there are some various layouts. All these things would be on wheels, and so those layouts that are shown are potential layouts that we can set up with the equipment that we propose.
Got a kick out of the fact that they think they need to show us how to set up tables and chairs.
It's the way
We have the dinner theater set up, and then we have the war games set up, and then we have the mock UN set up. Oh. They just like to run their program.
So the tables would be very similar to what was purchased for the library expansion in the basement, where they have they're on casters, and the tabletops flip up so they can be neatly stacked in the corner. Currently, the upholstered chairs that are up there are bulky and heavy, much heavier than these, and they take up so much space. They almost take up one of the corners of the room.
And where does exactly, I mean, the $25,000 figure, is this quote from WB Mason or?
Yeah, it's a quote from several folks. Basically, that's costing out about 18 tables and 48 chairs. A couple of different size tables and a couple of different types of chairs.
I mean, it's
Good
like
reasons for the other chairs.
coincidentally, the minimum amount for the capital budget committee, that's why I'm like, how does the quote come in at exactly our threshold?
Come here. It's just where it seemed to fall out when you price it out.
Actually, it was 24,998.
Uh,
I mean, it's obviously there.
Well,
We actually buy,
I'm just looking at the quotes. I mean, and typically, the way we operate is we like to see quotes or something from a price list, et cetera, and I don't see those yet. I see the pictures of the.
Yeah, I include that, but I can, but it's a price list. It's not gonna have a bottom line price. It's gonna give you a cost per chair. Large tables were $530. The smaller tables were $490. And then there was some upholstered chairs for like committee folks. And then there are the movable stackable.
That's fine for us too.
Yes. Please.
Um,
So, hey, Christina, anything you want to add or give some insights to as far as how you folks use the space?
Yeah, sure. Being there all day, it is kind of a revolving door of residents coming in. It's kind of changed kind of the environment of town hall as well, being able to offer all of these classes. I think the employees really like it. The residents love coming to town hall. It's easily accessible. They're enjoying the campus with the library as well. And we love the space. I think the reality is that we are certainly not getting a senior center anytime, at least while I'm going to be here. And this is kind of the next best thing for us. It has really saved us a lot of time. We love how we've got the dividing wall because we're able to actually have two programs going on at the same time. And we've gotten really positive feedback on the space. People actually request, some of even our presenters request that space over the library. And so I think in terms of that, it's we're doing all types of things in there, the fitness classes, the lifetime learning meetings, as well as we do pretty well with not conflicting with other town meetings and activities that are going on. We're very considerate of that. And so overall, I think having the room feel a little bit more modern, I think is fair to say as well. Just with other people experiencing the library. It would even give us more space to not have those big giant bulky tables to kind of reconfigure that space there. So so we would love to see it. We always set up and we always clean up, and it is really, really heavy, and the chairs are really bulky and awkward. So we really appreciate you all considering this.
And yeah, actually, Chris, you noted when you were looking at this, there's actually an impact to your budget, that you've been able to utilize the space there at Town Hall more than doing offsite to save some.
Yes, yeah, and thank you for bringing that up, because with our town budget, we actually took off $2,000 of our rental fee. So we came in under budget with the town because we're using Town Hall. Thank you, Jeremy, for reminding me of that.
Sorry, COA is a town funded?
Yeah, Council on Aging is a town department.
Not fully appreciate. Thought there might have been some separate funding too. There's only just the town.
It's only the town. I mean, they get donations, and they do have some smaller revolving funds, and they chase after many grants. But it is a town department.
Can I make a motion to
Yeah.
approve
Please.
25,000 for equipment, chairs and tables for town hall?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Thank you very much
you
for
for
hanging in there.
No, I enjoyed it actually. This was all
Presenting.
good. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. You all have a nice night.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So Deb, I'm not sure if you're still on. I think that's the end of our sort of regular business. So I did want to highlight, so it'd be on the 21st would be our next meeting.
I think advisory is planning on being here too.
Okay. And Deb, thank you for sending along the sort of updated I mean, you do it regularly, but the most recent tracker of the various line items. That was helpful to see, especially apropos of our conversation last week. And since Sean is still here, I figured I'd bring it up. Sean, I'm not sure if you had a conversation with Deb about one of the line item that you had referenced last meeting, where there was a balance of $40,000 approximately at one of those accounts. So I just would have to go back and like square it with what was on the warrant then, but it sounds like there's flexibility.
There's something there. I think, I mean, we'll be back the 21st. I got a couple things and
The other thing
we'll update that ask appropriately and
yeah.
reconcile what's there and what's left to do.
The other thing I did notice, as I was looking at it, there's some money left over from a vehicle from fiscal year 2022, I think.
For me,
No, fiscal year 2021.
I think is that one of the-
DPW 1-ton truck.
yeah, that's due to come in. That's sitting on a lot, still being built. That was
So that's the
what
last
Ford
one,
just
man.
kept for.
There is a very small amount of money from a police vehicle that,
This is 47,000.
yeah, that is another line, but yeah, that is yet to be delivered and paid for yet, the public works.
Yeah.
Okay, so is it only costing 47,000 or?
No,
just-
that's just what's left. It
Yeah.
was up, it was,
I also, the stormwater DPW, there's the most recent 2 years.
we'll be back to you with a better write-up. We have a meeting on Thursday, myself and Jeremy, consultants.
Right, and I don't know if like you skip a year or something and you're
Yeah,
just
we're
using.
gonna, what's in there as a placeholder for FY 26 it's gonna be cut dramatically.
Right,
There is still some need, and we'll explain that.
because yeah, there's $320,000 that's been appropriated.
There's some construction that needs to be done, but there's also some ongoing annual things that need to happen as well. So we'll give you more detail in the next meeting.
Okay.
But that number, overall number for FY 26 for stormwater is going to be cut down dramatically.
And I know that this was ultimately free cash, so it's, obviously there's no money borrowed. But the Western Ave calming design, do you just have a ETA on when that might be done?
We're hoping to finalize kind of the design over the winter, the layout for, to hit it this construction season. There's a couple moving parts up there that we gotta shake out with Whitney Street.
There's a lot of activity around this.
Right.
Which, by the way, is still beautiful.
Oh, I thought you were going to say it's beautiful.
And water.
Glad you're catching on.
We like that.
You have no idea, people. You have no
So much
idea.
spare time this year.
And then I'm not sure if you just happen to remember off the top of your head, but fiscal year 2023, there's another appropriation of $175,000. Do you remember what project that was for?
What,
I mean, it doesn't say, it just says town building facilities and infrastructure on this, but it doesn't actually give the identity of the project.
I was looking at all these just a little while ago. The fiscal, tell me again, fiscal year what?
So it's at all town meeting in 2023. So I guess that would be fiscal
4, yeah.
That's right.
Town meeting 23?
Yeah, so the code, it's.
I had a
it's
spreadsheet I
around
had given you
23.
guys.
Is that the stuff at Butler? Is that like the tanks or something?
It was the tanks, it was,
With the tanks, $375,000?
no, were they what? Did you say 100? No, it was more than that. There was about 6 or 7 things.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
town building facilities and infrastructure, but there was anticipated items within that.
I think it included the wall, it included these gutters here.
I thought we had broken those all out. No?
We had.
Yeah, they're broken out, but not within that spreadsheet. That when I sent you that spreadsheet, there's a second tab that actually breaks it down. I don't have, I do have a copy here.
Yep.
I just run that one.
Does the 175 stand on it?
But there is, I think we did, I recall that we did go through that years past. What that was, sort of preliminarily earmarked for. It may not be enumerated in this spreadsheet, but.
So, but it
Yeah.
is elsewhere and then tracked separately?
Do you want to see it?
Well, yeah, 23 was half free cash, half not, correct? 23's article got split in half.
Well, so 23, there was the amount that was, there was a line item that was specifically for general purpose. And then there was, everything else was broken out that we took at least specific votes on it, capital budget committee. I can go back and try to see if I can look at my notes.
Yeah, I mean, I have,
Anything.
I can tell you that 175, when we split it up on that spreadsheet, we had $35,000 for town hall HVAC, 75,000 for transfer station electrical, and 65,000 for the town hall roof and attic. That adds up to the 175.
So
Those were the
that-
3 projects.
So none of those projects have been
None of those have been started.
Oh, yeah, well, it's the roof, the attic.
yeah, it's just close.
It's what?
It's close.
We're
Close
supplementing
to
that
start.
with some grant funding. That 65 would cover it all, so we have grant funding that will balance that out. So.
Close to happening.
Got it.
That's what.
Yeah.
No, I just want to, if there's a dollars there, usually that means you have an incurred cost, so, yeah.
Yeah, we haven't incurred any costs for that one. It's the attic insulation part of that. So it's soon.
So you're on the precipice of incurred costs.
Yes.
How long do you have to spend that? 5 years or 3?
Here or with that one marries with a grant, but
Unless
No,
there's a
just in general,
sunset
one
provision.
seventy-five, yeah, is there,
depends if
Yeah,
they have a
unless there's a
sunset.
sunset, it's there
It's
until
just
it's
there
used
for-
or reappropriated.
okay, or
I think there are
a long
some
time.
of the things on the sheet do have a sunset. I don't know which ones particularly, but if they didn't have a sunset, then they would be available until they're actually utilized or town meeting to actually reappropriate.
I kind of think that, was it last year that we had a clean out?
There was
Of
some.
some little dribbles?
Yeah.
They weren't necessarily gonna sunset, we reassigned.
No, I mean, they were not,
Fund
yeah, they were leftovers.
to help fund some of the balance around it.
I did send you, the stuff with the truck, if you wanted to look at that again.
During the meeting?
Huh? No, I sent it to you a week ago.
Yeah. Sorry, I thought you were referring to something new.
No,
Um,
what day, or at least you have it, you have the 2 quotes.
right. Well, I mean, I'm thinking that it might just be best for
It's not technically on your agenda.
go to bed.
Well, it was on the first item of the agenda for items previously discussed. But leave it for the 21st, we'll do all.
I think it might be best to put it at it per,
Yeah, it's fine.
it's 2.5 hours. Right.
I move we adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi, Devin.
All right, good night.
Thank you so
Good night,
much
Tim.
for hanging in.